Thank you, Jim and Jan and David and Quentin. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Good, okay. I'm moving from real estate to real state. This is a new thing you're going to hear about. It's an underlying condition that's only gotten more extreme in the last few years since I was looking around LA and
Sarah, you especially shall please.
Do my best, Steve.
There you go.
As I was looking around LA to document what I was seeing a few years ago, I had this feeling that it was as though Los Angeles was designed by David Hockney and Hieronymus Bosch suddenly. And so a lot of what I'm going to be talking about in here has to do with income inequality and housing inequality and the various degrees of hardship and privilege that find their extremes in homelessness, but don't end there. A few years ago, I mean, the weird thing about coming back to this poem is it's almost like a time capsule, because things have gotten so much worse and so much more visible than they were when I was even, writing this before. At that time, in certain parts of town, homelessness was a little bit less visible, even by those who were homeless, more hidden. And so I had the impulse, I thought the ideal way to present this poem would be in an installation where there was some kind of stone-like substance in which I'd written the poem with my finger, so that you would have to actually come up to it to see it, because that was the experience that I think there was a tendency for so many when there was a homeless person, a tendency to look away. And I didn't want that to happen. And when I got to that point in thinking about this, there was no way to not think about the tablets. So, like in Kate Gill's poem, there's a lot of thou shalt in this one, as though a crazed God had arbitrarily pointed his finger at people to put them in different situations. Real state. Thou shalt hang thy blankets from a tree, or thou shalt score a gig as a retail doorman on rodeo. Thou shalt cover thyself with a sheet of clear plastic and kick at the corner of Broadway and 6th while pedestrians pass. Thou shalt fumble for keys at the end of the night shift, still in scrubs. Thou shalt hang a right in thy pre-owned 911 Carrera. Thou shalt remove all personal belongings from thy cubicle before the end of the business day. Here's a box. Thou shalt spring for the $27,000 beaded gown not far from the Bois d'Argent. Thou shalt prop the mattress against the eucalyptus across the street from the house in escrow, the 2-story for lease, and the Renault covered in Tyvek. Thou shalt park thine SLK 320 under the sycamore leaves. Thou shalt not be able to light your cigarette in the wind as you sit on the stoop behind the open storefront display of the wig-head mannequins. It's an economy storage box. Thou shalt pick up the tab on the ornamental $13,000 Buddha and that 6K bottle of scotch in the duty-free. Thou shalt dry thy clothes on the guardrail in front of the Walgreens and Shabu Shabu. Thou shalt walk with weights in the evening as the sky turns amethyst, then amber, and the water comes on, inches from the rusty grass. Drive 45 on the boulevard. Thou shalt leave the couch and the plastic plant on the curb at the end of the month. Thou shalt load the Relo cube for pickup at Glendon and Victoria. Thou shalt live in the back of a 1950s Buick with shattered glass. You can use the Wi-Fi at the Starbucks next to the dollar loan. Thou might get a construction job on the northern side of the national rent offense. Thou shalt put the tents up after the shoppers leave. Thou shalt no longer be able to afford the unpermitted room within earshot of gunshot and helicopter. Thou shalt join the 17 million readers who have fallen. Thou shalt try to sleep in the late afternoon at the base of a street lamp on the hidden side of a shell in the marina. Thou shalt lose thy shirt selling armor, rugs, and chandeliers. No parking any time. Thou shalt stick 2 signs in the lawn, home for lease and tutoring. Thou shalt check the stats on the listings from the last 6 days. Thou shalt organize thy belongings carefully under the overpass. Thou shalt vacate the premises. Thou shalt not vacate the premises without giving a 30-day notice. Thou shalt guard the tents at Venice and Globe, open door policy. Thou shalt not sleep except upon a concrete floor. This is about a different kind of power dynamic that goes on in the workplace, and again, it's not new. I worked for a place a number of years ago before getting into teaching where there was about a layoff a year, sometimes more. So it got to be like musical chairs. And it wasn't about work performance. It was about all those other factors. And then it was my turn, finally. And a very, very odd historical detail came up in the middle of those moments. The Watergate. He understands that you've made many contributions and thanks you for them, though, he says, he doesn't know exactly what they are. Having been here 5 months to your 15 years. And your boss, looking properly sheepish as in sheep. And what was the story he kept repeating, that other guy, the one who downloaded your brain? How they stopped the public beheadings at the tower when throngs of supporters showed up, disrupting the proceedings. Instead, they'd slip the chosen over the Thames at night in a boat and in through the Watergate. No one would know until it was done. He asks you to train your replacement in the hour you have left, the cubicles around you, already vacant, the newlywed, the deportee, the veteran, the jerk. A coffee cup remains. Around 7, everyone nearly gone, you hear the sound. If only they'd waited till 8 or 9 to celebrate. It can only be described as a gust of cackling coming from the exec. But you are not a victim. You are a witness.